Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hey guys, namaskara. My name is Shahul and you're watching Shahul Vlogs. I am a second year physiotherapy student studying in Narayana Hrudayalaya Institute of Physiotherapy, Bangalore. This is my channel and here I discuss physiotherapy stuff, contents, updates and also a part of my life. So in the way of vlogs. So today I'm going to be discussing with you guys terms used for describing motions in biomechanics and also two important and major topics and the base for starting biomechanics, that is what is an axis and what is plane and how we use it to describe the motions in our body. So let's go. So let's go. I'm going to be telling you 3 sentences and I will make sure that you guys understand these 3 sentences by the end of this video. So the first sentence goes like, flexion and extension are motions around a frontal axis in a sagittal plane. Second sentence, abduction and adduction are motions around a sagittal axis or an anteroposterior axis in frontal plane. Third sentence, internal rotation and external rotations are motions around a vertical axis in a transverse plane. So these are 3 sentences. So let's dissect these sentences and we'll see what are the terms which you guys are not understanding or which is new. So first one is flexion and extension. So those are the terms of the motion. Okay, are motions around an axis, around a coronal axis or a frontal axis in a sagittal plane. So we have motions, we have an axis and we have a plane. So we'll discuss first what is an axis. An axis is generally a midpoint around which the motion occurs. So for explaining that, let me take an example. So this is the axis around which a motion will occur now. So for example, if I take flexion and extension of the shoulder joint. So flexion and extension. So this is moving around a particular axis. So what is that axis? So for showing that axis, I cannot insert this inside. So I'm gonna show you. Okay. So this will be the axis like this. Okay. So imagine a line passing through the shoulder joint, okay, in this direction and around which flexion and extension occurs. So as you can see, this is an axis for shoulder joint. So similarly, so if I'm saying abduction and adduction, so the axis for abduction adduction will be anteroposterior axis or sagittal axis. So anteroposterior, anterior, posterior. So the axis will be something like this. So it move front to back and abduction and adduction, abduction and adduction. So that is an axis. Now that you know what is an axis, let's see how many types of axes are there. So if you have learned graphs, you would know that we have 3 axes: x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. And since a body is a 3-dimensional body and we have that is why we have 3 axes, x, y and z. But we don't generally tell x-axis, y-axis and z-axis in biomechanics. We tell x-axis which is x-axis, this is gonna be termed as frontal axis or coronal axis. Frontal axis or coronal axis. X-axis is also known as frontal axis or coronal axis. Y-axis, which is like this, will be known as vertical axis. So the y-axis, okay, in the graph like this will be known as vertical axis in biomechanics. And we have z-axis. Z-axis is front to back, usually these are front to back. So the one which I described now, anteroposterior axis or sagittal axis. So z-axis will be known as anteroposterior axis. So this So x-axis will be like this, y-axis will be like this, and z-axis will be front to back. So if you see, so those are the axes. So now moving on to what is a plane. So a plane. So we do not generally describe motions only with the basis of an axis. So remember the sentence which I said, flexion and extension are motions around a coronal axis in a sagittal plane. So whenever we are doing our motions, right? So if you are doing abduction, adduction, or flexion and extension, or internal rotation and external rotation, we are doing the motions in a plane. So so in this picture, you can see that this will be a bit confusing. So if you see closely, you can see objects like glass panes, bisecting our body. Okay, if you can see this closely, it is bisecting our bodies. Okay, so we have three planes. So to unclutter this, I'll post another three pictures, which is this. So if you can see these three pictures, you can see that the green plane is called the sagittal plane, and in this sagittal plane, what it does to the body, it bisects the body into the right and the left body halves. Okay, so it divides the body in such a way that it is divided as right and left halves. So that is sagittal plane, and in sagittal plane, flexion and extension are the motions which take place. Okay, that is sagittal plane. Now if you can see another picture, which is the rose colored or pink colored picture. Okay, so in this you can see that abduction and adduction is taking place in frontal plane. So what is frontal plane? It is a plane which divides the body into anterior and posterior halves. Okay, so imagine a glass pane just bisecting our body straight through the midline of the head, okay, in such a way that the body is divided into the anterior and the posterior half. So if you see this picture closely, you will understand better. And the last plane is transverse plane. So transverse plane divides our body into the upper half and the lower half. So if you see this brown color glass pane which we are describing, it's generally not a glass pane, we are just imagining it. So yeah, this one divides our body into the upper and the lower halves. So that is the plane. So in transverse plane, internal and external rotation takes place. In frontal plane, abduction and adduction takes place. And then in sagittal plane, flexion and extension. So these are the planes. Now moving on to the motions. Now coming to the motions which take place in the body. I think I have already mentioned you about motions. So let's explain it. First one will be flexion and extension. So I keep on telling flexion and extension, abduction and adduction, internal rotation and external rotation. So by now you would have understood that flexion and extension are opposite motions, abduction and adduction are opposite motions, internal rotation and external rotation are opposite motions. So if you have figured out at least this much, you are already on the way to understanding biomechanics. So we'll go on with flexion and extension. So we'll take the arm, elbow joint as an example. Okay, so sagittal axis, sagittal plane, frontal axis. Now, okay, frontal axis is here for elbow flexion and extension. So moving in, okay, the segment moves in. This is called flexion, and now I'm moving it away. This is called extension. So moving close, the body segments, when body segments move close, that is known as flexion, and when the body segments move away, that is known as extension. Okay, so moving in, flexion, moving out, extension. Similarly for shoulder, this will be flexion and this will be extension. Flexion, extension. Okay, so that is about flexion and extension. Next, moving on to abduction and adduction. Abduction and adduction, I've seen many students or many classmates of mine and many people getting confused with abduction, adduction. So I'll give you the spelling. Abduction, adduction. So the trick which I used to remember abduction and adduction was, when you say abduction, it's generally kidnapping. Abduction, abduction. So you generally hear in the news, right? Like a person was abducted for ransom. Abducted. So taken away. Okay, taken away. Abducted, taken away. So abduction. So some of them say abduction for simplification. Abduction or abduction is taking away of the body segment away from the midline. So abduction is away from the midline. Adduction is the opposite, towards the midline. So abduction, taking away from the midline. Adduction, towards the midline. Okay, so that is about abduction and adduction. Now if you can recall the things which I said back in the video, abduction and adduction takes place in the frontal plane around an anteroposterior axis, or also known as sagittal axis. So moving on next with the internal rotation and external rotation. I'm not gonna confuse internal rotation and external rotation for now, since I need you to understand it in the basic terms. So if you guys can see this, internal rotation, external rotation. So if you can recall the sentence which I said, internal external rotation takes place in a vertical axis around a transverse plane. So around a transverse plane. Transverse, as you saw in the picture, I'll again pop it up. Transverse plane. So let us take an example of this limb, okay, upper limb, and we'll be internally rotating the hand. Now when I say internally rotated, internal, inside, towards, so this will be the internal rotation. So when I'm internally rotating it, okay, the axis is vertical. So yeah, so the axis, yes, so the axis will be vertical. Okay, so around this vertical axis I'm internally rotating and then externally rotating it. So internal will be moving in, external will be moving out. That's it. Internal rotation and external rotation. That's it. So we learned 6 motions: flexion and extension, flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, abduction, adduction, internal rotation, external rotation, internal rotation, external rotation. Easy? I hope so. It is very easy, because now you've understood what is an axis, what is a plane, and what are the terms of motion. Hope you guys understood this, and I hope you guys learned something from this video. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. This was a video explaining to you what is axis, plane, and terms of motions. So you can follow me on Instagram, which is given here, and also you can follow me on Facebook. The link is in the description. You can DM me on Instagram or on Facebook, mostly on Instagram, and I'll be replying to your doubts and queries or whatever it is. Just say hi, I'll say hi. So yeah, and also I have here, I don't know, somewhere here, I think it is here, I'm gonna be posting on I button, and here you can see the daily first year physiotherapy videos. So I've explained biomechanics important questions and anatomy important questions which is required for the exam, and much more things. So you can click in the playlist, you can scroll and check out the videos. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Press the bell icon for further notifications. Like the video and share it with your friends. Share it in your group, and let this be an help to people. And supplementary exams are starting for the batch in Karnataka for the supplementary batch. So yeah, if you can share it, it'll be very helpful for them. Hopefully they'll know it. And if they don't, after seeing this video, they'll learn. So yeah, thank you for watching Shahul Vlogs. I am Shahul. I'm a second year physiotherapy student, and keep watching Shahul Vlogs. Until then, bye bye.